Miami could be the best team in all of college football.
You are Locked On College Football with Spencer McLaughlin, your daily podcast on all things college football. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Locked On College Football. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you all so much for making this your first listen or your first view every day. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, your daily source to stay up to date with the biggest stories in this, the greatest sport on planet Earth, and often the craziest as well. Did Alabama fix itself? Bill Belichick exposed again. I can't believe it. I can't. Yes, I can. This episode also brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the FanDuel app today. Miami is impressive. Really impressive. They're so impressive, they overcame the curse of being one of my best bets of the week. That's how impressive Miami was on Saturday night. If you didn't watch the game, you don't have a sense for how big the gap between a top 25 team. I have Florida State rated in the top 25, just barely, hanging on by a thread, but Miami on their home field, away from home, was way better. And I look around the rest of this ACC, and as I talked about yesterday, Virginia is 2-0 in conference play, Duke is undefeated in conference play, and Georgia Tech. And you know what? Georgia Tech can go toe-to-toe with Miami. We've seen that over the last couple of years. I really like Georgia Tech. But man, who's challenging them in the ACC beyond that? I just look at this conference and unfortunately say, boy, this feels without Clemson there to really support the league and Florida State regressing to the mean like I thought they would. Yeah, they just don't look like an incredibly tough conference. They don't look like a league worthy of putting two teams in the playoff. They might get to there if Georgia Tech and Miami keep winning. But Miami is so dangerous for a couple of reasons. Number one, they can beat you in any way. I feel like Miami could win a shootout. We saw that last year. I've seen Carson Beck do that before. They could win a defensive struggle. They could win with their run game. They could win with balance. They could win with their defense like they did against Notre Dame. They have improved situationally, which we know with Mario Cristobal has been a struggle over the years. They are really dangerous. Carson Beck is playing really good football. He's in an offensive system that clearly is a rinse and repeat sort of structure with regards to putting a new quarterback in the fold. Yep, just Cam Ward out, Carson Beck in, and Carson Beck looks like a Heisman Trophy finalist. Goes on the road to Florida State, 20-27, 241, and 4 touchdowns. They just have everything. If you think about the best teams in college football, or who you perceive to be the best teams in college football, let's say I've still got Ohio State number one in my rankings because I think they have earned that particular spot and they haven't had such a poor performance that they should be knocked out of that spot. But if you feel like Ohio State is just a really good team, but not number one, it should be Miami. I don't know that there's a huge argument against that, given the opponents they've played so far. Texas is unranked, as they should be, and that's Ohio State's best win so far. They'll have chances to improve upon their resume going forward, but I still think Ohio State is really, really good. Hot take. Let's say you think Ohio State is the best team in college football, or you think it's Oregon, or you think it's Indiana, or you think it's Ole Miss, or Texas A&M, or whoever it is. Which one do you feel like Miami is incapable of going up against? They just went on the road to a top 25 team and overwhelmed them on both sides of the ball. Their trench play, which is Coach Cristobal's calling card on the recruiting trail. Remember, he's the one that recruited Kayvon Thibodeau to Oregon back in 2019, which was a pretty landmark win on the trail for the program at the time. Number one overall player. He's recruited guys like Penei Sewell. And you look at that Miami offensive and defensive line, it's got his blueprints all over it. They look like the more physical team in every game they play. They're showing up with game plans that look like they have been well prepared, well thought out, and their team can go out and execute. And I am just over 5 minutes into my opening segment on today's show, telling you why Miami is a really good team, why their defensive coordinator, they made a change in the offseason. They needed to. And guess what? That's working quicker than I expected. I thought Miami was a good but not great team coming into this year because I thought, kind of like D'Anton Lynn over at USC, there would be an improvement, but you wouldn't just automatically in 1 year ascend to a championship level. Yeah, I underestimated their progress on that side of the ball. They've got everything that you could want, including but not limited to a very winnable conference, especially with Clemson out of the way. Number one. Number two, a clear path to the playoff. And number three, all the pieces to go win a national championship. No reason they can't do it. Absolutely none. Doesn't mean they're going to. I'm not sitting here and picking them to go win the national championship. But if you've looked at Miami in past years, like last season was exciting, thrilling, important to get the brand of Miami back and winning all those games, it wasn't sustainable. Everything about what Miami's doing right now feels incredibly sustainable because they have everything covered. Veteran quarterback, good offensive. They didn't even run the ball well against Florida State. Guess what? Didn't have to. In the past, that would have been a problem, it felt like at times. Not with Cam Ward necessarily, but couldn't run the ball. Oh boy, I don't know what they're fine. It's all good. And I sidetracked myself there. I'm over 6.5 minutes into this segment, and I haven't mentioned Malachi Toney. I mean, CJ Daniels, nice transfer portal addition at receiver. Malachi Toney, we think about the transfer players a lot in today's college football world because the portal's a big deal. It's very important in the sport. But guess what? That old school notion of high school recruiting, which is how Mario Cristobal has built this roster, retaining the bulk of that talent, and then having some impact true freshmen here and there, that's been a good formula. Not just for Miami, for a lot of teams across the country. Oregon right now is playing really, really good football. Big game against Indiana this week. They've got 4 or 5 true freshmen that are legitimate contributors, including but not limited to their leading rusher and their leading receiver. Turns out you can still do that. Malachi Toney's one of those guys. So one question for Miami coming into the year, how do you replace that production on the perimeter? Because they lost a lot. You lose Elijah Arroyo, who I'm watching make some plays for my Seahawks in the NFL on Sundays. Brutal loss for the Hawks at home against the Buccaneers on Sunday, by the way. But he's making plays. Xavier Restrepo, one of the greatest to ever do it statistically at that position, which is saying something for Miami. And you go out, yep, CJ Daniels, yep, Malachi Toney, we're good. We're good. Carson Beck, we're good. Running back, offensive line, rinse and repeat, we're good. Miami's got everything you need. Everything you need. Good vibes for the Hurricanes after that win against Florida State. I thought they'd win. I thought they'd cover, beat a top 25 team on the road. And for Florida State, just really quickly, I didn't jump up to this is a playoff team. And I wondered going into this game, did they peak against Alabama? Was that the high point of their season? Did they come out, catch them off guard, and the Crimson Tide weren't mentally ready to roll, and now Alabama looks like a significantly better team than they were then. And Florida State looks a little bit more normal, but improved. And again, for Florida State, improvement was always the goal this season. They're going to accomplish that. They do not need to make the playoff or the ACC championship game, neither of which they're going to get to, by the way. They don't need to do that for this to be a successful season. I don't think Florida State fans should have any vibe change after the loss to Miami. Yep, we got beat by a better team. Well, guess what? You're in year 1 of a soft reset, and it's going pretty well. So, Miami's really impressive is the biggest takeaway here. What about Alabama? Are they just fixed now? First, this episode brought to you by Peloton. Peloton is shaping the future of fitness with the brand new Peloton Cross Training Tread Plus, powered by Peloton IQ. It's their most advanced equipment yet, designed to give you real-time guidance and endless ways to move, whether you're running, lifting, or cross-training with your favorite instructors. This is training reimagined. Peloton is built for breakthroughs like UCLA's on Saturday, with tools that help you plan, stay motivated, and reach peak performance. Kind of like the opposite of what James Franklin and his coaching staff did for Penn State over the weekend. They didn't help them reach peak performance. But guess what? Peloton is here to help you do that, because you don't want to be like Penn State. Nobody wants to be Penn State right now. You want to be anti-Penn State. Think of Peloton as the anti-Penn State for your fitness goals. Let yourself run, lift, flex, and push forward. Explore the new Peloton Cross-Training Tread Plus today at onepeloton.com. That's ONEPELOTON.com. Check them out at onepeloton.com. There's a part of me that wants to be really angry at Alabama because I'm desperately searching and not finding a winning week for my best bets. And that Alabama scored when the game was over to cover 10.5 against Vanderbilt is why you should not ever wager an amount of money you'd care to be rid of on these particular incidents, because boy, thought I had the winning week there. Instead, it's 2-3. And Alabama has fixed themselves. That's what they look like to me. The Florida State game was a disaster. It was a continuation of the problems from last year, and now we're just not seeing that version of Alabama show up. And that's great news for Kalen DeBoer. That's great news for Crimson Tide fans. My biggest points of concern for Alabama last year and in the Florida State game were penalties and situational football. Well, what do you know? Alabama, an early failure on fourth down in this game. They went 2 of 2 after that. They were 7 of 15 on third down. Not bad. 3 penalties for 30 yards. This looks like a much more buttoned up team. Hey, they even ran the ball well. And I am not, because I am consistent on this particular position, and I hope that I never do this in my entire career, picking and talking about college football games. I hope I never go into a game and say, hey, you should look at a game this way, and this win should be measured in this way, and then come out and say, oh, the other team wasn't actually any good. Oh, they weren't. No, that Florida State game was still a disaster. No, I felt Vanderbilt had a chance to hang around, maybe win the game. I picked Alabama to win. I picked Vanderbilt to cover. That's essentially what happened. This game looked how I expected, but the vibes for their Alabama fans should be good right now. For Vanderbilt, disappointing. Season's not over. You still got a lot of goals ahead of you. Vanderbilt's still a top 20 team in my top 25. Going to the college football playoff, not at all out of the question for the Commodores and Diego Pavia there. So disappointing, sure, but in a revenge spot on the road, did you expect to win this game? I didn't. I think for Vanderbilt, this is a no-vibe sort of outcome. Just, darn. Let's go get the next one. But for Alabama, they look like the football team Crimson Tide fans were expecting from the moment Kalen DeBoer showed up. Because given his recent history, that's all he had done. Win double-digit games and just get things going immediately. And it's taken a little while longer. Well, Ty Simpson looks like a much different player. The Alabama offensive line has had a fire lit under their rear ends collectively, and they're protecting him much, much better. Now, he was sacked 4 times in this game, admittedly. It wasn't always perfect. However, you look up and Simpson is going 23 of 31 for 340 yards and 2 touchdowns with an interception on the 4th and 1. He looks like the perfect sort of fit for this Kalen DeBoer offense. He looks a lot more like Michael Penix than Jalen Milroe, and that's what they were looking for. I think that's why they went with Ty Simpson. Because last year, Jalen Milroe is half runner, half thrower. That can be great. If you put him in Andy Kotelnicki's system at Penn State, it would probably fit better than Drew Aller. If you put him in Haynes King's spot at Georgia Tech, it would fit a whole heck of a lot better than if you put Carson Beck at Georgia Tech. There are different fits, and Ty Simpson is the type of quarterback that Kalen DeBoer and Ryan Grubb have historically had success with. Not that mobility is bad, wrong, or something they're never going to be able to work with. They just want a guy who fundamentally is going to do his damage from the pocket, and that's what he's doing. And the offensive line is playing significantly better. That Florida State game, he's under duress. A lot. All over the place. And so as a result, the game got sped up. He looked out of sorts. He was having to run a lot. That's not what he does. But Alabama here plays a good Vanderbilt team, and they were the better team on the field. And yeah, I'm sure Crimson Tide fans would have liked to have had a big dominant blowout payback for the embarrassment of last season. But ultimately, if you're Alabama, you take what you can get. Remember, the Crimson Tide are yet to lose an SEC game. They could lose one this weekend. Some people, me, have Missouri as a top 10 team in college football. Now, I have Alabama back into that fold following their wins at Georgia and against Vanderbilt. But at Missouri this week, followed by their next game against Tennessee, who we also know is good. That game's in Tuscaloosa for the third Saturday in October. Is a really challenging stretch. And if Alabama wins their next two games, I actually can't see how they don't go to the playoff, because after that, they play LSU and Oklahoma at home before Eastern Illinois. Oh my goodness, it is the last time that I have to talk about a late season SEC cupcake this year. I never want the college football season to end. That alone almost makes me excited for this college football season to end, because we will never have, hopefully, the late season cupcake there. You can have them early in the year. That's fine. I support that. As a matter of fact, sticking it in late November, an abomination for the sport. They play at Auburn the last week of the regular season. Auburn might not have their current head coach. Now, as we learn with UCLA, that can actually make a team incredibly dangerous. But Hugh Freeze is fighting for his life, and Alabama controls their own destiny here, despite the upset loss to Florida State, in which they played horribly. And Florida State, they may or may not be in the top 25 at the end of the year. I think we're going to look back by the time the season comes to a close. If Alabama continues on this trajectory, I think we are going to look back and just wonder, how in the world did this Alabama team play like that? A team season is never defined in August or September, but still, how did you go from looking so bad against a good but not great team in the ACC in Florida State, which is what they are? In the ACC, that's the worst of the Power Four conferences, by the way. How did you look like that and then wind up in the SEC championship game? I picked Alabama to go 11-1 in the regular season. I think they'll drop another one at some point. It could be this Saturday. Missouri is a darn good football team. Bo Pribula and Amari Hardy are playing real ball there in Columbia, and that crowd is going to be on fire because they've got an opportunity to prove to the rest of the world, okay, here we are. This is Missouri football, and we're going to go make the SEC championship game. And it's hard to write them off for that. But when I watch this version of Alabama compared to the past, I see a coaching staff that has got its players in the right mindset, that are making adjustments, that are making changes to fix the mistakes that have plagued them previously. And now you look up and go, okay, so I've got two elite receivers, a good running back, an offensive line that continues to improve, a coordinator and head coach that have got a long track record of winning, our quarterback's playing really well, our defense is playing well. Wait a minute, we might have a football team. It's not the Alabama of old. It's not one that's going to go out and win just because they've got the scarlet A on the side of the helmet and everyone's intimidated. Nope, they've been knocked down a peg from that. And frankly, I don't think there's anybody in college football that can have that level of intimidation right now. The talent is just way too spread out. In a big game, I don't think you can go into it and go, this team has just got absolutely no shot, as long as it's not a huge discrepancy. You know, if you put the Group 5 champion up against Ohio State's defense, I don't think they're going to score a ton of points in that particular spot. But for Alabama going forward, this looks like a team that can go to the SEC championship. This looks like a team that can get to the playoff and make a run. They have to get through some serious hurdles, though, because LSU's defense is no joke. John Mateer should be back by the time they play Oklahoma. Things can get weird at Jordan-Hare last week of the regular season. And before that, you've got Missouri, Tennessee, and at South Carolina. Challenging, but it's hard to not be encouraged if you're a Crimson Tide fan. Bill Belichick got exposed. Just some predictions are too easy. First, this episode brought to you by our friends at Square. Your favorite neighborhood spots are running on Square. There are certain businesses that make the neighborhood the neighborhood. These are the places that become an extension of the home, whether it's the sports bar dedicated to your team's fan base, the spot with the best wings on game day, or that beloved local chain that's been rooted in your community for years. These businesses are what bring people together, which is what makes sports great. And when the neighborhood businesses thrive, the whole neighborhood thrives. And you've probably used Square without even realizing it. When you go to one of these local spots and you want to check out and get a nice, quick, easy payment there, Square is probably the one that is using that. They're helping local businesses thrive, and that helps neighborhoods all around the world. Square is a proud partner of more than 4 million neighborhood businesses around the world. You can go to square.com/go/lockedoncollege to learn more. But before you do, go support your favorite neighborhood spot. You'll be happy you did. Square. See you in the neighborhood. This episode also brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. I'm cursed. I'm absolutely cursed. It's not FanDuel's fault. It's my fault for being cursed. Maybe I need an Etsy witch to get this just unbelievable spellbinding run of negativity for my best bets. I mean, how does Vanderbilt not cover 10.5? I just... The late touchdown from Alabama is why I don't have a winning week again. I am on an unprecedented run of a lack of success. I'm telling you to fade my picks each week. I'm trying to make you money, and FanDuel is the way that that's happening. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. You pick a bet, you put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. And you know what? I just fade the picks. Fade the picks. Everything I touch, I'm the opposite of King Midas. Instead of everything I touch turns to gold, everything I touch rots immediately. So, what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today. Get started. Check them out at FanDuel.com. Yeah, I know. It's year one. You got to give a coach time to get his players in there, establish his system, get acclimated, and on the whole 9 yards. Not that North Carolina's offense could move the ball 9 yards if they wanted to, but Bill Belichick is just floundering in Chapel Hill. And I have been out on this hire and dubbed a hater for being so, by the way, which is not an indication of resentment against the fans in North Carolina. Great fan base that deserves a winning football program, a competitive, serious, legitimate football program that got boat raced by Clemson on Saturday. Look, it's one thing for Freddie Kitchens to be the wrong hired offensive coordinator, which is about as shocking as Team USA making a bevy of blunders in the Ryder Cup and getting pantsed by Europe on their home turf. Which is to say, yeah, not very. Bill Belichick is the defensive mastermind, hired his son, who just coordinated a good defense at Washington. They're going. You know what makes it an especially bad look? Ohio State. Yeah. You know who Ohio State's defensive coordinator is? Matt Patricia. A Belichick guy. Wait, so a former assistant that was a mess as a head coach in the NFL, in his first year coordinating with the Buckeyes, is having immediate success. Let me put my thinking cap on here. So if it's not the system that doesn't work anymore, it's just the coaches that are implementing it. Hey, wait a minute. The wrong coaches might be in charge in Chapel Hill. Let me just throw that suggestion out there. It's year one. Maybe year two will be better. This is ugly, though. It's one thing for the offense to struggle, and you make a bad hire, that happens. It's another thing for you to be the greatest defensive coach in the history of the sport. And no, I didn't think North Carolina was very good this year. This is worse. Clemson has been floundering for weeks. They have barely been able to complete a forward pass. They are in free fall. Dabo Swinney looks like he's having an existential crisis every time he goes to the podium. And they went into Chapel Hill and made the fans leave at halftime again. This was not a great situation to walk into. They got hit in the portal a little bit. They had some talent. Like, North Carolina was what, a 6-win team last year? Yeah, they look like they've taken a step back. Sometimes you have to go one step back before you can take 2 steps forward. Some people, me, for those watching on YouTube, had North Carolina third to last in my preseason ACC power rankings. I might have had them too high. I've been more impressed with Wake Forest than I have North Carolina so far. And preseason rankings are worth whatever they're worth. I had Clemson number 1, Miami number 2. Oh, that's a pretty good pick. Georgia Tech number 4, good pick. Yeah, Clemson number 1, not as good of a pick. Virginia, very underrated. Anyway, North Carolina just looks like such a disorganized mess. And it doesn't help when you have a highlight flying around of the most open receiver in college football all weekend, resulting in an incomplete pass because he got led to the boundary. Like, there's just nothing about North Carolina that looks good. And early on, take Mississippi State. Jeff Lebby inherited a worse situation at Mississippi State last season than Bill Belichick inherited at North Carolina this season relative to the schedule they're going up against. Jeff Lebby's team last year went 2-10. Ugly. They got blitzed by Toledo. Horrible. Really bad. At some point, they started to show progress, which is why some people, me, pointed out, yeah, this is actually a pretty good team. They're going to pull an unexpected win this year. Because the side of the ball that the coach comes from, offense, showed signs of life last year. Why is the defense this horrible? No, you don't have as good a talent as you might get in 2 years' time. Why is it this bad? Almost like you hired the wrong coach. Almost. Almost as if I want the best for North Carolina. I really do. I really, really do. But holy smokes. Clemson won the game. I couldn't. 38-10. You made Clemson look like the ACC champion? Ouch. Clemson got beat soundly at home by Syracuse. Yeah, let me just leave that one out there. So, why don't we chalk that up in the short term? Wow. The entire book of Bill Belichick as head coach of North Carolina hasn't been written yet through the first few chapters. Why don't we put that in the Spencer was right category? Here's another one on the Spencer was right. I'm not always right. Sometimes I'm very wrong. And I come on here and tell you about that. I love when I get those comments from people. Man, where are you going to be when this team does this? Right here, doing more content now than I put out during the summer. I don't know how you think this works or what my contract says, but that's the way that we roll. Texas A&M is the opposite of North Carolina. Texas A&M's good. I was impressed. Now, they didn't have a ranked matchup according to the AP this past weekend, but they did in Spencer's top 25, and they won that game 31-9. They slowed down my role of riding the Bulldogs as an underdog to cover my best bets. And you know what? Felt good about it at halftime. This was ugly. 7-3. But that Mississippi State offense I mentioned that is good couldn't do anything against Texas A&M. They can beat you in a lot of ways. I saw them win a shootout at Notre Dame. They've won back-to-back kind of defensive struggle fests at home the last couple of weeks against Mississippi State and against Auburn. Texas A&M is a team that I have ranked inside my top 10. They haven't lost a game, and I won't be surprised one bit, not one single bit, if they are in the SEC championship game this year. If Marcel Reed keeps progressing with Colin Klein as his offensive coordinator, who I think is really good, and the defense continues to play better and better, they'll start to feel a little bit like Miami. They can win in just about any way. And for years, this is a program that's taken a lot of flack because they underwent the great sin of caring about college football. That's why people don't like them. No, really, that's what it boils down to. I don't like Texas A&M. Why? They spend a lot of money and they don't win. Okay, would you rather they don't spend money and not win? Is that better? Is that the way you should do it? I don't really think so. So Texas A&M has always had great potential, and Mike Elko looks like that head coach. Now, they were in this spot last year. They were in this very spot last year, controlled their own destiny at about the midway point of the college football season, starts to turn, the air's getting a little crispier, we're into October, and Texas A&M faltered a bit down the stretch. But this team looks real good. And I'm not one who said, oh, it's Mississippi State. Nope. That is a top 25 team that they just beat by 22 points. Was it closer than that? Sure. Sure, I'll grant you that. I love defending Mississippi State on this show. But Texas A&M is good. Consider them the opposite of North Carolina. Appreciate everyone listening. I'll see you next time. And until then, hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.